Warning. The Michael Savage Show contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised.
And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Here is Michael Savage.
Savage Nation. This is Michael sitting in for Michael on the Savage Nation. The phone number, of course, is the same. I'm not even going to read it to you. You know what it is already. I mean, to me, this is not really the beginning of the new year. I began the new year last week when I was on the air, but here we are. I don't know why people are still on vacation. I drive on the roads like a ghost town, like nuclear winter. Where is everybody? If there's such a meltdown in the economy, how can everybody be on vacation? The roads, the bridges, the tunnels are empty here in the Bay Area. Where are they all? How could they all have so much money if there's such a meltdown? Well, because a lot of things are myths. Sure, there's been an economic meltdown for certain segments of society. The poor got poorer, in other words, and the rich got richer. With rare exception, the really rich were so engorged with their own self-belief that they gave money to the biggest crook on the planet who robbed them. But by and large, the rich got richer and the poor got poorer, which means nothing's changed at all. Now, as you well know, Al Gore is nowhere to be seen now that global temperatures have cooled, like the groundhog he is. In fact, groundhogs are a higher form of life than Al Gore, in my opinion. Al Gore disappears every time there's a monster cooling trend in America. It turns out that everything you knew about global warming was false. That's why they're calling it climate change. You notice they don't call it global warming anymore? It's called climate change. But earlier this year, predictions were rife that the North Pole would melt entirely in 2008, and the poor polar bears would be stranded on the ice floes. Well, instead, the Arctic ice saw a substantial recovery owing to cooler weather, and sea ice has ended the year at the same level as 1979, ever since satellite imagery was first enacted. So the fact of the matter is there is no global warming. It's a complete myth. It's put forward by the same SOBs who are lying to you about everything else, including the Madoff scandal. The big issue today, of course, is the Middle East. Should Israel withdraw from Gaza immediately? Should Hamas be crushed before Israel withdraws? These are important questions. If you want to call about that, I know we can argue over it. But before we start arguing over Palestinians and Israelis, remember one thing. If there was a simple solution to this biblical problem, it would have been enacted by now. It doesn't seem to me that there is a solution that I can think of. And by the way, since I'm touching on the Middle East, let me ask a few questions. I notice that the Quakers, the American Friends Service Committee, the self-righteous Quakers, are out there marching in lockstep with the Hamas group. It's interesting to me that if they're so holy and so righteous and so concerned about humanitarian problems in the Gaza Strip because of the Israeli incursion, where were these good Quakers during the bloodbath in Bombay? How come the Quakers were not quaking about the Islamists' bloodbath in Bombay? Which goes, again, to the same point. What about all of these other left-wing radicals who are marching in solidarity with Hamas? Where were they when Bombay was bleeding? How come we didn't see all the actors and the actresses who are now suddenly crying out in favor of Hamas? Make no mistake about it, the Palestinian people themselves are suffering. But this is as much a result of Hamas having seized the Palestinian territory of Gaza as any other reason. Don't tell me that the Palestinians want to be ruled by a bunch of Nazi thugs. I don't believe it. I believe that the Palestinian people deserve a lot better than a group of armed killers who kill their own kind if they dare stand up to them. The fact of the matter is, if you have a sovereign state, it's not going to lay down and die because a group of terrorists don't like its existence. Now, having said all of that, you have to ask yourself, how long can this go on until it blows up in all of our faces? The answer is, I don't know. It's in God's hands. But if you look at the Bible, you'll see that this has been going on since biblical days. And no matter what you say, no matter what I say, nothing is going to change. Israel's been kicked around for years. They gave back the Gaza Strip. They didn't get a neighbor who wanted to live in peace with them. Instead, they got 6,000 rockets fired into their own cities and villages. Now, I know to many of you, these are not real dangerous rockets because not enough Jews died. In other words, if more Jews had died, you'd say the rockets were dangerous. But the fact of the matter is the people ran into their bomb shelters. And if you want to live that way, then ask the British what it was like to live under the barrage of V-1 and V-2 rockets that Hitler was firing, which were random and not targeted. It broke them emotionally. They didn't know where the rocket would land. They heard it coming in, and their nerves were shattered from it, which is exactly what Hamas wants to do or wanted to do to the Israelis, which is break their will to live by frightening them, by terrorizing them with, in this case, small rockets, which have shrapnel in them, but nevertheless are lethal. The fact of the matter is no sovereign nation can or will accept or should accept a neighbor firing rockets at it. They're going to have to use their military. That's what the military is for. So if you want to talk about this Gordian knot, and try to unravel it, give me a call at 1-800-449-8255. We can also talk about the economy on the show today. I have a lot to say about the economy today on the show. I know a lot about the economy, a lot more than you may think. There are new stories about the economy that are worth talking about. According to an article I read, which is phenomenal, the next element of our society that's going to melt down, or the economy rather, is commercial real estate. We've seen a meltdown, of course, in residential real estate, but thus far, commercial real estate is rather immune. But the vacancy rates are growing. The vacancy rates in commercial buildings, in other words, they overbuilt. In plain English, everything is boom and bust, so we're going into a bust cycle. Did you know that Bernie Madoff took a deposit from someone for $10 million 6 days before his arrest? Did you know that? That Bernie Madoff accepted $10 million from an investor just 6 days before he was arrested for allegedly running a mammoth fraud, according to a complaint filed in federal bankruptcy court. These and other stories are all found on michaelsavage.com. I tend to, I think, collect the stories that I think are worth radio time. Because that's why they're on the website. And I run a picture site. Each story has a picture. It's like a cartoon site. I admit it. And that's fine. I think it's easier to scan the pictures and look at them that way. And if you want to scan michaelsavage.com and come back to me with a call, the phone number is 1-800-449-8255. We can talk about there's so many. I have enough topics here for 5 weeks, never mind 5 days. Have I touched on John Travolta's loss yet, Beowulf? I don't even know. Well, I'm going to do it right now. I want to talk about John Travolta's loss, his son. I was so sickened by the vermin in the media for attacking John Travolta for not using medication on his son that I got furious over the weekend. I want to know why the media vultures, who were beholden through interlocking corporate directorships to the pharmaceutical industry, have been attacking John Travolta while he's mourning his son's death. For God's sakes, he lost a son that he loved. And yet you vermin, most of whom have no children, most of you are drugged up, most of you are sexual deviants, and you attack him because he's a Scientologist? Well, let me ask you something. Why are Scientologists persecuted as a group for their beliefs regarding not using medication when Christian scientists who hold similar beliefs but are far more liberal are not criticized by you rats in the media? I'll let you ponder that, you pot-headed ruins. Your ruins, your relics. I'll be right back.
Savage.